Legislative Studies at the University of Hull. He was appointed to the chair of government in 1986, making him, at 35, the youngest professor of politics in the UK. He was elevated to the peerage as Lord Norton of Louth in 1998 and was the first chairman of the House of Lords Select Committee on the Constitution. He is the president of the Study of Parliament Group, the chair of the History of the Parliament Trust and the Higher Education Commission, and editor of the Journal of Legislative Studies. Lord Norton, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much. I'm a bit like Baroness Jones. I was tempted to open by saying my lords, but at least it's not like Lord Farrington in the 1950s who opened a debate by saying my dears. My task, and I may speak quickly because I've got a lot to cover in the light of what's been said, total misunderstanding of the role of the House of Lords, its place within our political system. I'm going to focus on the motion. I'm going to resist the temptation to be distracted by wider constitutional issues. I'll just point out there are some very good books on the subject which are available from all good bookshops. I begin with two basic propositions. Good law is a public good. Secondly, form should follow function. Once you put those two together, I think you've got a compelling case for the House of Lords. The first, in terms of output legitimacy, that is what the body does. The first, in terms of input legitimacy, that is how the body is chosen. Law is fundamental to a stable society. It shapes our lives. So it's important that the law of this nation is well devised, that the principle of it is quite clear what it's intended to achieve, and the detail is there to deliver on that. The Commons is ideally placed to determine the principle of legislation. It's because it's elected, that's why it should do that. It's because it's elected, it's not able to focus on the detail and ensure it is good law. That is the role of the House of Lords. That is to play to its strength. So the role of the Lords is to complement the role of the elected chamber. Because the Commons is elected, it has certain political imperatives. That drives what MPs do, and increasingly they have to engage in basically attention-seeking activities to get noticed to ensure they are re-elected. In the course of that, they engage in activities that do not include detailed legislative scrutiny. There is no political mileage in it. They have neither the time nor the political will. That's why the House of Lords matters. It is a chamber of legislative scrutiny. And that, I think, is the key point. The House of Lords is one of the busiest legislative chambers in the world. It devotes most of its time to detailed legislative scrutiny. In the last session, about 60% of the time, in the way that the Commons does not. So that makes a difference. And I'll come on to the reasons why, but every session, the House of Lords achieves anything between a few hundred to a few thousand amendments to government bills. So without the House of Lords, the statute book of this nation would be in quite a dire straits. So it ensures that what we have, the law, agreed by the Commons determines the ends of legislation. The Lords does not challenge that. We focus on the means. That is, I think, absolutely key to what it does. So the balance is, as I say, it complements the Commons. It does not challenge it, which would make it objectionable. It does not duplicate the Commons, which would make it superfluous. So it's fulfilling a task that adds value to the political process. And that, I think, is the essential work. The work that the Lords does is not newsworthy because it's just looking at the detail. But what it does delivers a public good. And even governments accept that when they've attempted to reform it. Successive governments acknowledge that that function, that detailed legislative scrutiny, is appropriate to a second chamber, and that the House of Lords does it well. I mean, when the government tried to reform the House of Lords in 2012, it premised on the basis that what it actually did, the work it did well. And the Gordon Brown Commission, the recent commission by Gordon Brown, got headlines because of the nature of the second chamber it was adopting. But when you look at what it said about the existing work of the Lords, let me quote directly from the Brown Commission, what it said, yeah. Oh, I shall come to that. Because this claim about democracy, I'll come back to you and ask you how you're actually defining it. But I shall respond to that argument because I shall point out that those who argue, it must be Democrat elected, is based on a false premise. So I shall come on to that. I'll come on to the arguments that people use for changing and explain, including the Brown report, why that doesn't work. But what the Brown Commission said, it accepted that the House of Lords does discharge an important constitutional function. Its scrutiny of legislation can be more thorough and effective than the Commons, leading to changes of approach and amendments. The work of committees is often of very high quality, largely because of the experience and expertise of its members. This is because many peers demonstrate a highly commendable and often lifelong commitment to public service. It also went on to say, additionally, the appointment of crossbench peers brings a level of expertise and knowledge that might otherwise be lacking, something which the public values. Whatever changes are made should not lose the benefits which the House of Lords scrutiny of legislation and government action brings. So there is that recognition that what the Lords does, it does well, and the reason it does it is because of composition and also because of procedure. Composition, political composition, because no one party has an absolute majority, so the government has to take it seriously, it's got to persuade other parts of the House to go along with it, and because of the individual composition, because most members, not all, and it's the exception that attract media attention, most are there because of their experience or their expertise. They're they've got backgrounds which give them knowledge that is not otherwise available, or they're the experts in their field, whether it's law, science, medicine, available to the House to ensure that legislation is is engaged in detailed legislative scrutiny. So the composition is fundamental. So when the government says, oh yes, well, we should change the composition but keep the functions, make sure they're well fulfilled. I'm sorry, if you change composition, it affects the capacity to fulfil that particular function. The Lords also has procedures very different from the Commons. There are no timetable motions. All amendments put down are debated. There's no selection of amendments. We don't have closure motions. So the Lords will debate, as long as necessary, legislation. And if several hundred amendments are put down, we debate several hundred amendments, however long it takes. We might sit late. Last session, over 20% of our sittings ran beyond 10 p.m. The record was sitting until 4:30 in the morning to deliver it. So the House of Lords is one of the, as I say, it's one of the busiest legislative chambers in the world. It devotes its time to complementing the work of the House of Commons and provides a very different culture. Because of what I've said, the House of Lords is characterised by a culture of justification. In the House of Commons, it's a culture of assertion. So what it does, it adds value, and as the late Lord Sachs argued, it provides an arena for the discourse of civil society. It actually adds value. So that's the case for the Lords. Let me quickly address those who argue against it. If you read the Brown Commission report saying, oh, it should be abolished, whatever, you know, some of the arguments that are used, oh, it's too big, abolish the Lords. I mean, all these non sequiturs, that's not an argument for abolishing it, it's a case for reducing the size of the House. What are some of the other arguments that are used against? Oh, yes, the appointments process, you get some duffers appointed, some people who shouldn't be there. Abolish the Lords. No, reform the appointments process. And the Lords was all in favour of that. We support reducing the size of the House. I've introduced a bill to reform the appointments process, to raise the quality threshold, to ensure the House reflects more the diversity of the population of the United Kingdom. When that was debated, overwhelming support in the House for it. The problem isn't the Lords, it's the government in providing time. But we have achieved change, so we are actually self-reforming. House of Lords Reform Act got through as a private members' bill. 2015, the House of Lords Expulsion and Suspension Act, sponsored by Baroness Hayman, we got through. So we are capable of undertaking reform, and we are pressing for more. And I sort of chair a body that's designed to achieve that. And as for the argument, it must be, why isn't the House of Lords democratically elected? The argument, oh, it's democratic. And when people say that, I say, how you define democracy? That usually shuts them up. They can't define it. Democracy, demos kratia. It's about how we choose to govern ourselves. That's the key point. And under parliamentary system, we choose government who's going to be governors through elections to the House of Commons, because it's the government that is the determiner of public policy. It's not Parliament. So that is essential. As I say, from a democratic point of view, you need to maintain that, because government is chosen through election to the House of Commons and fundamentally is then accountable to electors at the next election. The electors put it there, and election day at the next election, as Karl Popper put it, is judgment day. People can sweep it away. You start electing a second chamber, it will demand more powers, and even if you can get them, you can use the existing powers in a way we don't. To challenge the first chamber, to challenge government, you end up doing deals, the process is opaque, you end up with outputs for which there is no one body that is accountable. Under our existing system, we have core accountability, the party in government answerable to elect the next election. People understand what they're voting for, they can sweep it out. Elect a second chamber, you get rid of that core accountability. So there is not a sort of democratic argument for an elected second chamber. So if you believe in good law, if you believe that the executive should be accountable, there should be core accountability of the executive to the people, to the electors, then you must oppose this motion.